Do you ever feel like you're falling behind? Like everyone else has life figured out while you're still trying to make sense of yours? Maybe you had a plan, a timeline for how things should go, but now life looks nothing like you expected. I get it. I was obsessed with hitting the right milestones at the right time. Until I realized those timelines weren't just unrealistic, they were holding me back. In this video, we're breaking down the pressure to meet these invisible deadlines, where they come from, why they don't define success, and how letting go of them completely changed my life. So when I was younger, I had a very strict timeline that I created for myself. I wanted to be married by 23 years old, own a house by 25, and start having kids at 28 years old. Once I had kids, I wanted to be able to quit my job completely and actually just be a full-time stay-at-home mom. Now, the funny thing about this is I don't even know exactly why and where I created these expectations for myself. I know growing up, I really highly looked up to my mom, and I knew that she got married pretty young and had kids starting at around 28. I also knew that once she had kids, she was able to cut back on her work hours and work part-time while my parents were still together to be able to raise us as much as possible at home. And I really aspired to have that lifestyle, as well as once my dad left and my mom ended up having to go back to work and I didn't see her as much when I was growing up because I'm the youngest. I knew how much that impacted my childhood, and even though she still did amazing and did the best she could with what she had, I really wanted to be able to provide for my kids what I knew that my mom wanted to provide and what I knew she was able to provide for my older sisters when they were growing up. So that, combined with the fact that I really matured pretty early at a young age, mainly because I had to with things that were going on in my family and personal life, that just created this perfect storm of me thinking that I needed to have everything together and hit all of these milestones at like the perfect time, and that if I didn't have that, things were gonna go badly for me, for my husband, and for my children. But at the end of the day, I really just thought that meeting these goals was going to mean that I had security and stability in my life, and that was something that I really was looking for. Through therapy in the past few years, I found that specifically stability is like the number one thing that I struggle with. When I don't have stability or security in my life, I feel so extremely uncomfortable, and it starts creating like a million and one problems for myself where I'm like lashing out and making bad decisions and all of those things. So that combination of what I learned and saw from my mom, along with the societal expectations of just having a certain amount of money saved up before you turn 30, or having a certain amount of money in a retirement account at every decade point in your life, the negativity surrounding having student loan debt, all of these factors together made this entire fake mindset in my head that I would have security and stability like I wanted if I met these goals. So I went off into the world, started my degree at the University of Florida for engineering, all with this plan in mind of I was going to go for engineering, come out of school, start with a really good job, making really good money, invest as much money as I could into my 401k, start saving for a down payment on a home, and get married as soon as possible out of college so that we could start our life together, start building the foundations for these goals to actually happen before these certain milestone ages. So what changed? Well, life happened mainly, but basically I ended up quitting my job 1 year after finishing school and being in that job because I absolutely hated it. So my means to actually achieve those goals was now gone, and I had let it go and decided that it was not for me. So I really had to start back at square one and think, okay, well, if I still want to achieve these goals, how am I going to do it? Which led to me starting my business, beginning freelancing, starting my YouTube channel, all of these things. But the reality was that none of those things created the lifestyle that would allow me to still meet those goals. I was not making $65,000 a year plus benefits and 401k contributions matching from my company by quitting that job and trying to work for myself, initially charging $20 an hour. That just wasn't happening. Meanwhile, my husband, who was on the pre-med track, graduated and has been kind of in this phase of deciding whether or not to go to med school, working on his applications and working full-time to help us pay bills in the process. So we really both were kind of in this spot where together, although yes, I did end up getting married at 23 right out of college, we were not on any track to be able to buy a house at 25 or have kids at 28. Now, could we still have kids? Yes, but I again had created this idea in my head. I needed to hit each goal in the timeline in order to feel some sense of security and stability. But But the funny thing is, everything changed when I realized that these goals didn't even align with what I actually wanted. I finally had this like awakening moment last year actually, where I was like, why am I even trying to achieve these goals at certain time points in my life? Do I want to eventually buy a house? Yes. Do I want to eventually have kids? Yes. Do I want to eventually be a stay-at-home mom? Yes. Do I have to do all of those in the exact order and time frame that I told myself I needed to do them? No. Is anyone looking at me badly, or does anyone even really care that I'm not doing that? No. And if they do, then I don't want them in my life anyways. The reality is that society makes us feel like we need to reach these goals, and if we don't, that we're a failure. And that's just not true. This whole realization helped me to understand that the problem was truly the timeline that I created. The problem wasn't necessarily these goals in themselves. It's not that I needed to let go of ever buying a house or let go of ever having kids. It's that I needed to let go of the timeline and this like social construct that I had put around it. So in the past year, a lot has happened to me, and I've actually discovered a lot of health problems that have been causing a ton of problems for me in the past few years and made it really hard to actually push forward with my business and like create any type of like real tangible success besides just making ends meet. I was diagnosed with POTS actually in the past few months, and that's been like the big kicker that has helped me realize why I really struggle with procrastination and being productive and things like that. It's really because I'm dealing with all of this fatigue. But at the end of the day, this diagnosis made me have to quickly come to grips with the fact that I could not control everything, and I cannot force my life to go in a direction that I want it to go. As much as we do have some amount of control over what we do on a daily basis, the way that society and productivity culture makes it seem is that by doing these exact things, by being consistent every single day, by constantly being disciplined, you are going to achieve your goals. But the reality is that you might not achieve those goals. You're going to achieve something and things are going to change for you, but it might not be exactly what you set out to achieve in the first place. So specifically, I started focusing on letting go of perfectionism and being okay with the fact that by being consistent, I was not necessarily going to meet the goals that I had in my head whenever I set those habits. I then released all the pressure of the societal expectations, all the expectations coming from family and friends, and just really let myself sit in what I wanted for my life and also what my husband wants for his life, and us working together as a team and a partnership to really structure what we're trying to do and focus on the things that are going to somewhat steer us into that direction. The funniest thing is I truly love having Oliver as my husband because he is such the counterpart of me, where I was always so fixated on these timelines and he was always like, but like, why? Who said we have to do that? And having that balance really helped me start to instill those ideas in my mind. So I'm hoping with this video, you can start to instill some of those ideas in yours as well and let them like embed into your subconscious, so you stop having that negative perfectionist mindset really like push down on the idea that it's okay to just let go and let things be. I really started just allowing myself to be open to the idea of change and whatever could come from that change. As I started building my business, things really shifted from where I initially thought that my business was going to go, and I really just went with that. I allowed that to happen and just reflected on those changes, what I liked, what I didn't like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And when I say reflected, I don't mean I sat down and did like constant journaling prompts or anything like that. I really just thought to myself, am I happy with the direction this is going? Whether that was verbally talking that out to myself, verbally talking it out to my husband or a friend, or just thinking about it in my head and asking myself, like, what do I want to change about this situation? What am I not happy with? And just taking small steps to adjust my lifestyle and adjust what I'm doing on a daily basis to get closer to what I'm liking in that moment. And the reality is that it's gonna change a lot. Like what I wanted to be doing a few years ago is so different than what I'm doing now. What I'm creating on YouTube is so different than what I was creating 8 years ago when I made my first video. My ideas of what I wanted to spend money on 5 years ago are completely different from what I'm spending money on now. And I'm okay with that. I'm allowing that to change and be ever evolving and just really accepting myself where I'm at and being comfortable in that and really learning to sit with myself and be happy with myself in this moment instead of constantly looking forward at where I'm gonna be in a few years or like what I'm gonna be like when I'm a mom, what I'm gonna be like when I'm a homeowner. We used to always talk about wanting to buy a duplex for our first property so we could rent out half and live in the other half. Like what would I be like as a landlord? What would I be like as a business owner? All of these ideas were really, again, just like rooting in me that I had to focus on where I was going and like who I was gonna be be in the future instead of focusing on who I am right now and working on that person today. I am so much happier now. Like, it's actually crazy to me to think about how hard I was on myself mentally just a couple of years ago. I didn't allow myself to do things that I wanted to do because I was telling myself that by doing that, I was not allowing myself to reach those goals that I had set for myself. Something that I've always wanted to do since I was a kid is go to Japan. I've always loved Japan with a burning passion. I had not been letting myself even consider the concept of traveling to Japan and going to Korea to visit my best friend who moved there after college because I was telling myself that financially it was a terrible decision and we should be putting way more money into our retirement accounts. We should be saving for a down payment on a home. And the reality is, yeah, that would be great. And there is nothing wrong with doing that. And if that's what you choose to put your money towards, that's not a bad thing. But it's also completely okay to go on a trip every once in a while that you've always wanted to go on, if that's what you want to do. And that's fine. And it's okay. The one caveat I will put that I will stand by is that don't go into debt to go on a trip. You might not regret it per se in terms of like you'll always be so happy you went on the trip, but you will regret the debt. I promise you that. So don't do that. Plan a little bit ahead and make it so you don't actually go into debt on the trip, but go on the trip. Like, go on the trip. We didn't put any money into our retirement accounts in the past year. Any money that would have normally gone to that was going specifically to that trip and the thousands of dollars in medical bills that I had from dealing with all my problems the past year. And that's fine with me. I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied with that. When I'm 80 years old, I'm not going to look back and be like, man, that one year when I was 27, I really wish I hadn't put all that money towards that trip to Japan or the medical bills that helped me diagnose and actually treat the problems I'd been dealing with for years. Like, I'm not going to think that, right? So I don't regret that at all. I have the ability to figure out the retirement piece in the future. There's more time to come, but I am so grateful that I really just allowed myself to be okay with letting go of some of those things I wanted in my life and do something I've always wanted to do and go on this trip. Another big thing that happened was I always said that, again, I wanted to own a house by 25, and we were obviously not in any place to buy a house anytime soon. So when our lease ended last year, we decided to rent a house as kind of like a next option. That felt like the second best thing to do to feel like we were making some progress towards that goal. So we decided to leave apartment living and rent a house, and that ended up being literally like the most traumatizing thing of my life in a long time. And I truly do regret moving into that house. I regret signing that lease because deep down, I felt like it wasn't right. It didn't feel perfect to me. Not that everything has to be perfect, but like it just didn't sit right with me. It didn't feel aligned. And I went against my best judgment and against that voice in my head telling me like, I don't know, something feels off, feels like you're rushing into something. And we signed the lease and it was a disaster. We were only there for 3 weeks. We lost so much money living in that house because there was mold in the house. There was a cockroach problem in the house. Like, there were so many problems with living in this house and I was a mess. Like, I could not function the 3 weeks we were there. I barely got any work done. Like, I lost so much from living in that house financially. It just was a terrible decision. The takeaway from all of this is do things when you're actually ready to do them. Don't do things because you feel like you need to do them, because you told yourself you should do them by a certain age, because society tells you, because your parents are telling you, because whoever is telling you. Do it because you're actually ready for that. Are you actually ready to take on the stress of owning a house and having to keep up with all of the repairs? Are you actually ready to have children and have them be your number one focus? Are you actually ready to get married and let go of your life pre-marriage and put all of your energy and all of your abilities into keeping and sustaining that partnership? Because if you're not ready to do those things, then that's fine. Just don't do them and tell people, nope, not ready to do that right now, but thank you. It's so important that you feel true to yourself and aligned in your own intentions whenever you make such a big decision. And all of these societal expectations and family expectations really have such a huge impact on our lives in the present and the future. And it's so important that you actually are ready for them. Don't go to college if you're not ready to go to college. Honestly, I wish I didn't go to college when I went to college. I wish I waited a little bit longer. I wish I thought through my major a little bit more. Maybe I didn't even ever need to go to college, considering I don't use my degree to this day. But I went because that was the next thing in the path and I felt like I had to, and that was the only option. So I went to college. And the most amazing thing about this is when you start doing things that just feel feel right for you in the moment and feel more aligned with what you're looking for in your life in this moment, you'll find that so many other opportunities open up to you because you're not so narrow-minded and closed off to only going down the path that brings you to the spot that you think you should be. So as soon as you allow yourself to really just expand out, you'll see like 10 other paths that you could go down. And then you can choose the path that feels right to you in that moment. A couple of years ago, me and my husband were in this position where after I quit my job, I was focusing on trying to build this huge business so that when he went to med school in the next couple of years, I could fully sustain us and we could start having kids and be able to run my business from home while he was in med school while raising children. Fast forward to now, my husband actually just quit his job to join me in working for ourselves in my business and creating content here. And he may or may not still go to med school. We don't know yet, but we know in this moment that this is the right path for us. So we feel very comfortable and safe and ready to take on the next steps and whatever come from them instead of forcing something that just is not the right timing for us in whatever moment. So when I think back to really just what I thought my life was gonna look like when I was 27, I am so shocked but so happy to see that I have let go of all those specific expectations I put on myself. I really thought back then that I would be living in a house somewhere up north, definitely not back in Florida where I grew up, pregnant right now and ready to soon exit my career so I could be a stay-at-home mom. And I am truly so far from that. And I am actually so much happier than I really thought I could be from not having that lifestyle. Does that mean we're not gonna have kids in the near future? No. Who knows when we'll have kids? Whenever we're ready is when we'll have kids. Does that mean we won't buy a house in the next 5 to 8 years? Geez, I hope so. In like 8 years, hopefully the market like fixes itself or something so we actually can. But we will be doing that whenever we're ready. And that's okay if that's today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now. But the best part of all of this is that when you take on this mindset, you realize that whatever phase you're in your life right now isn't forever, and you don't have to continue on some miserable path that you're on to try to reach some faraway goal that you don't even necessarily know if you really want. So if you feel behind in life, I promise you, you are not. You're just on your own path, and that's exactly where you're supposed to be. It's okay to change directions, let go of that timeline that no longer serves you, and focus on today and creating a life that actually is making you happy in the present moment. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below on what expectations you set for yourself at certain ages in your life that you no longer have met and that you're actually happy about not meeting. I think if we can create like a full comment section that's just showing and glowing with examples of people who change directions and are so happy about that, we can really start like punching out that limiting belief that if we don't do what we say we're gonna do, that we're gonna be unhappy in life. But that's all I have for you guys in today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.